Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, May 23rd, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Oxford Economics, pretty much 2020 presidential election prediction. So on your screen, let me go ahead and turn off my Discord notifications, but pretty much on your screen right now is the prediction from Oxford Economics, which came around sometime in the 80s and has a very long track record. This election model in specific has been correct for every single election since 1976 and every election since 1948 except for, I believe, 64 and 76. In terms of popular vote winners, I'm not so sure about their 2016 electoral map margin, but in this map, they do project that Donald Trump would lose the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden. Now, this map looks really weird. We're seeing states such as Missouri and North Carolina and Ohio and Iowa go to Joe Biden, while states such as Arizona and Florida are going to Donald Trump. So I want to talk about it. So this model was unveiled on Twitter a couple of days ago. There are publications about it, but you do have to own an account in order to go ahead and look at it. And I tried signing up for a free trial, but it didn't end up working. So I'm not entirely sure. They do the same thing for Rasmussen reports as well, where you have to actually have a subscription in order to look at the reports, which makes sense. They do need to make money off of this. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at the map itself and just talk about it because I can pretty much get a general assessment of what they're thinking. Pretty much before the coronavirus, they had projected that Donald Trump would win the 2020 presidential election. It looked like things were doing very well, and considering that they take economics into a big account, it looked like the, American economy was on track to do very well nationwide. But now it looks like with a very bad unemployment rate, which obviously has to do directly with the COVID-19 outbreak, but nonetheless impacts Americans, that's going to be looming over the American voters' head in November. And, when we're looking at the overall electorate, a lot of people are going to be negatively impacted by the economy. Unfortunately for the president, this is not going to go away for a long time. As long as states continue to remain open and people practically ignore CDC guidelines, it's not even like a political issue at this point. There are other countries that have done exactly what we've been instructed to do, but they're all past their curves. They're all ready to go back into regular society. Some countries have even started prohibiting American travel due to the way that we're handling the COVID-19 outbreak. As much as this has been politicized, it really should not be. Please try to at least keep a safe distance from people. If you have to go to work, I understand if there's a number of things. I'm not here to directly preach to you or take a political opinion on it, but really we all just want to go back to a normal life, and you can't really force that in a thing such as this. But this is going to be affecting Americans, and I can almost see it now, how we are going to have more than likely a vote by mail general election, probably to a point where there's maybe what they did in Wisconsin, 5 voting centers instead of 180. And, that may come with voter suppression, and that's very unfortunate. It's not up for me to decide how this would go. I'd much rather everyone have the ability to vote. But a lot of politicians are going to try to use this for their advantage, whether it's in Wisconsin or it's in Virginia or it's in Oregon. It really doesn't matter. It happens everywhere. But that's one thing that I think is going to be a major impact on the 2020 election, and the Oxford Economics model pretty much addresses that. They're talking about a continuation of unemployment rates that will still probably peak sometime around over the summer and be very impactful on the way that Americans vote in November. I honestly do understand that they don't see the economy recovering. It's a lot less optimistic than the mainstream media is trying to point it out to be, that there's a possibility we do recover from this. But if you look at all the states that are releasing their reopening plans, even the District of Columbia has a 1-year-long reopening plan, which means that at the latest, it'll take a year, which would be way past this general election. So I can definitely see how the coronavirus has a huge impact on Donald Trump's campaign. Regardless of who was in office, they were always going to get the blame because of this. Americans are suffering. You're going to blame the person at the top, regardless if it's their fault or not. But this map is very interesting to me. While I do think that the coronavirus will negatively impact people economically, socially, just the country in general, and I do think that Donald Trump will take a dip in approval rating as we continue through this pandemic, I don't think that the Democratic Party is going to carry the state of Missouri. When I saw that, I was very surprised. I thought it was maybe just a combination of looking maybe at the wrong map, taking the 2008 numbers in which Missouri was 100% competitive, decided between, 1% of the vote in the state of Missouri, but it has since become a very solid Republican state, and I definitely don't see Arizona going to the GOP over Missouri. Despite how accurate this model has been in the past, I really wouldn't agree with any characterization of Missouri being anything but likely or safe Republican. Realistically, it's probably not going to narrow up. And I understand I'm arguing with a very informative model, but it's just pretty interesting to me that Missouri would be considered a Democratic state. A lot of people, including the media, have been pushing away from even considering states such as that, which they did in 2016, but states such as this now as toss-up states, much less Democratic states. For North Carolina, I see it. It's realistic. The Democratic Party could carry the state of North Carolina, but there is no possible scenario in which Missouri goes to the Democrats and Florida does not, or Arizona goes to the Republicans and Missouri goes to the Democrats. I mean, that's just something that's completely unbelievable. While I do agree with a number of these predictions, I would say that some other states would have to go with the Biden campaign if this was the actual scenario. Before the COVID-19 outbreak, they predicted a Donald Trump victory. They predicted he would win the popular vote, and they predicted he would win the Electoral College. Now, they are being very extreme in the way that they are characterizing this. I think they're taking the worst type case scenario, pretty much our lowest point, which is right now in terms of our economic stage, our social stage. We're just a very polarized nation. They said that Donald Trump would get around 35% of the popular vote, and other candidates, including Joe Biden, would be around 65% in total. But I'm just not seeing that in terms of the way that Americans vote. Even if the economy is as bad as it is now on Election Day, people are still going to vote for Donald Trump, and people are still going to vote for Joe Biden. And most people will already have made their minds up before this COVID-19 outbreak. And despite its continuation, and very likely continuation over the summer and into the fall, it's not going to really change much about what we're talking about right now. Donald Trump is already getting hit from the left. Joe Biden is getting hit from the right. President Obama is getting hit from the right. There's a number of things going on, and this is all political discourse that's occurring during a global pandemic that is pretty much, normalized to us. There's really nothing you can throw at either of these two candidates that would drastically change the way that voters look at them. So states like Missouri are realistically not going to go to Joe Biden. So if I was to update this, I'd probably say that in this scenario, if this was to happen, if Ohio and Iowa were going to Joe Biden, we'd probably see Nebraska's 2nd district go to Joe Biden. We'd probably see Florida go to Joe Biden. Most definitely would see Arizona. And when you see that, that's a very solid electoral map for Joe Biden. But we have to be realistic. Democrats probably aren't carrying North Carolina. They're probably not carrying Florida, even though I just switched the order of those. They're probably not carrying Ohio. They're probably not carrying Iowa. They're probably not carrying Nebraska's 2nd district. And even in a scenario in which the economy was at such a bad state, there are still diehard Trump supporters and diehard Biden supporters that won't fluctuate and won't switch their vote for anything. And that's just as a result of an increasingly more polarized nation, but that's just how our electorate is. There's no real changing that. I understand the impact that the economy is one of the biggest things that Americans worry about, and they do. That is the most pressing issue right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. 52% of Americans are worried more about the economy, and only 30% of Americans are more worried about getting infected by the coronavirus. So a lot more people are worried about the economic impact much rather than actually getting diagnosed with COVID-19. I think that looking at this electoral map, looking at the map that they had given me, they probably will end up revising it before Election Day, more than likely, as they did have Donald Trump winning at some point in time. But it's just very surprising to see states such as Missouri and North Carolina and Ohio and Iowa all blue, with some notable absences from Arizona and Florida. And one thing that they don't really dabble into, Missouri voted to the right of a number of these swing states, voted to the right of Iowa, voted to the right of Ohio, voted to the right of Georgia, voted to the right of North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Texas, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, all the states that went for Donald Trump. So Missouri, I don't even know why it was considered a Democratic state. It's not going to be a Democratic gain. There really is no realistic scenario in which the Democrats could carry Missouri. Unless they were running like Jason Kander back in 2016 as the top of the ticket, but that's not realistic. And even then, he didn't win the Senate race that year. But then again, Donald Trump did overwhelmingly win the state. But, it really all depends. a lot of things are going to impact President Trump's reelection bid. As of right now, I do agree that he would lose his reelection bid, looking at the data and looking at the way that Americans currently approve of him and the way that he's handling the coronavirus. But if things do get better, it'll look very good for President Trump. If things stay the same or get worse, it'll probably just do just as much damage as it's doing right now. He's probably not going to dwindle past some of these states. He's definitely not going to lose Missouri. He's more than likely than not going to lose Iowa and Ohio, even though those states have pretty much voted with the presidential election winners for a long time, especially Ohio. And Arizona is probably not going to go to Donald Trump, looking at the data right now. So very interesting things about this model. I think that it's just very, very early to say that certain Republican states will go to Joe Biden. I can understand the certainty about some of the Rust Belt states, especially with the economy as a forefront issue in this model, but I wouldn't go so far as some of these characterizations for Vice President Biden. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all tomorrow.